Hello, I am Chia Michael, a 500 level student of law at Benue State University, Bangui, Nigeria. Today I'll be discussing food insecurity in Nigeria and around the globe and possible means of mitigating it. Every day, 60 million people in Nigeria and 1 billion people around the world go to bed without food. By 2050, the global population will reach 9.3 billion. That's almost double the population in my lifetime. This dramatic growth in population would require us to double food production in order to meet the demands of an increased population. To ensure that the population has access to the food that they need, it will be necessary to develop new agricultural methods to support the growing population. We can increase food supply by improving food distribution and management, reducing food wastage, and intensifying agricultural production. Benue State is considered the focal point of Nigeria's agriculture, hence the slogan, "Food Basket of the Nation." The state produces more than half of Nigeria's food. With this in mind, we might be tempted to think that there will be no issue of food insecurity here and Nigeria entirely. Sadly, the reverse is the case. 37 million Nigerians in 16 out of 36 states and the FCT are food insecure. Major contributors to food insecurity in Benue State, Nigeria and the world at large are food distribution and food wastage. Currently, as much as 40 to 50% of food produced in Nigeria does not reach the consumer. For example, about 10% of crops are left unharvested due to shifts in demand and supply. 15% of food goes to waste while in transit and in the market as a result of poor preservative methods employed by carriers and market women. Along with this, households waste as much as 20% of food purchased. As a result of losses during food harvesting, processing, distribution, and consumption, as much as 40% of food produced in Nigeria goes to waste. In 2017, the Ministry of Agriculture remarked that food worth 170 billion naira was ultimately wasted. With a teeming population of food insecure people in Nigeria, it is only imperative that food waste be minimized and food distribution be improved. If this is done, there will be food available to the food insecure people without increasing food population. While food insecurity is a challenge in Nigeria, it is even more alarming globally. It will only continue to rise unless we can improve agricultural productivity globally. This poses a challenge because the amount of arable land for crop and animal production is limited. We cannot increase the amount of land used for food production, especially when more land is needed for the growing population to live on. This means that agricultural production must become more efficient. More food needs to be produced per unit of land. Developing countries such as Ghana and Ivory Coast are prime examples of where an improvement to food production is necessary. These countries are dealing with high rate of population growth and low agricultural production efficiencies. In comparison, Nigeria is a global leader in yam production. For example, Nigeria records 40 million metric tons of yam production annually, while Ghana records just 7 million metric tons, and Ivory Coast records 5.7 million metric tons. In effect, it will take Ghana 5 years and Ivory Coast 8 years to produce as much yam as Nigeria. By improving production efficiency, we are able to supply enough food to much rising demands. It is this efficiency that developing countries such as Ghana and Ivory Coast need to replicate so that they too can match demand for food with its rising population. In order to successfully mitigate the issue of food insecurity, it is essential to address food distribution, minimize food loss, and improve production efficiency. There are many ways which this can be done. First, government and well-meaning individuals must come together to establish what is known as national food banks. A food bank is a non-profit charitable organization that distributes food to a whole variety of agencies that in turn feeds the hungry. If surplus food can be sent to national food banks as well as other countries, food loss will be reduced by more than 50%. Additionally, market women can collaborate with the food banks to provide food to those that need it. At the consumer level, education is an essential resource for mitigating food insecurity. If those sorts of programs can be carried out, it will help decrease the amount of food being wasted.
Finally, improving production efficiencies will have the largest impact on mitigating food insecurity. With limited land and resources available, it is essential that production be improved on the land currently used to grow food. With increased international collaboration, techniques that are currently being used in developed states such as the USA can be applied to developing states such as Nigeria, currently struggling to meet population demands. In order to do this, researchers around the world need to work together to produce plant and animal species that produce more with less input. If these mitigation strategies can be successfully applied, we will be much closer to the challenge of feeding 9 billion people by 2050.
If I am permitted to speak at the Youth Art Summit in Brazil, these are some of the ideas I would propose.